You know, I invite your suggestions to it. But anyway, for those of you who want to know who we are at Center for Spiritual Living Ocala and the larger movement, a very diverse group of individuals of various ages, different ethnicities, of every race and socioeconomic background and sexual orientations. We're just all very, very diverse, very different. But the beautiful thing about this group is that we all share some really important values and some qualities. I like to say that we are solutionaries, meaning that we are people who are really not content to sit in the woe is me and being in victimhood. We are people who are wanting to find solutions and are indeed finding solutions to the challenges that we face. We are a group of possibilitarians. I love that word, and I think if there was one word to describe who we are, that's what it would be. And what I mean by that is that as possibilitarians, we are people who live in the possibility. We know from quantum physics that every possibility that exists, that could exist, that ever has been, that ever will be, is out there. And so why not claim the biggest, the best, the highest possibility for each one of us? And we do that not out of naivete or aren't those sweet, loving, happy people that really don't understand reality. Far from it. We're possibilitarians because many of us have gone through challenges and come out on the other side. And so that coming from possibility is really coming from a place of great strength and from faith. And knowing that prayer works and that the universe is always conspiring on our behalf. We're a group of healers. And by healers, I mean that in its very broadest sense, to say that we are people who seek to live in integrity, that we are living in wholeness, and that we have this desire as a group to alleviate the pain and suffering of other people. And I think that's a beautiful thing. We can go by other names too. Some people have used the word spiritual activists or rainbow warriors, light workers. Those are, I think, people who evaporate, who dissipate the darkness through their own light. And we are unapologetic optimists. That's just who we are. There are plenty of other people that want to talk about this, how the sky is falling and living in fear. And they're welcome to do that. People have that option, but we choose not to do that. So we also follow a teaching that is really a distillation of the wisdom and the insight from the world's great philosophies, from psychology, from spirituality, and all of the world's great religions, and as well as science. We teach universal principles that some people call new thought, also ancient wisdom. And the main focus of our teaching, and what is the primary thing, is this idea that we are all one, that there is one power and one presence in which we live, move, and have our being. It is us and we are it. And therefore, because we are part of that, the second idea is that we were created in the image and likeness of our creator, of the source. And that doesn't mean that we look like God, if you use that word, but that we have the same nature, that we share in the qualities of the divine. And so our task is to use that ability that we have, this awesome ability to create, but do it with consciousness, to do it with purpose, and to do it with awareness. Again, not from a place of default or a place of fear. And we provide the teaching, the practices, and the tools for people to be conscious creators, to make the most of their lives and to live fully, so that, when that day comes, that's your last day of putting your head on that pillow, you know that you have lived your life fully and there are no regrets. So that's who we are. That's what we're about. And there's been some question, I think, certainly the ministers have been talking about it, just I think like every day, lay people are, that we teach, this metaphysical principle, and we live in truth. And so why would we shut the doors? Why don't we just keep going, business as usual, and put all the fear aside? And I want you all to know that the decision to not meet in person, to meet virtually, was not made from a place of fear. And it wasn't made lightly. It was really made from a place of caring and concern and stewardship for the larger population. There are people in our movement, and not just our movement, but in the world in general, who are looking at this going, this is just a cold. I'm not going to worry about it. This is silly. We're overblowing it. The media is making it a big thing. And then there's people on the other end of the spectrum that are terrified, that are buying up supplies and disinfectants and things in the grocery stores, and just really going over, over the edge on the other end of the spectrum. And somewhere between these two things, there's, I believe, a happy medium. And so, we can choose not to participate in the hysteria. We can say that this thing is, is not going to affect us, and that may very well be true. But, I think we get in trouble in New Thought sometimes, doing this spiritual bypassing or denying of circumstance. And I don't think it was ever the intent of Ernest Holmes to deny circumstance. The fact of the matter is that this thing is here. We can't deny it. It's here. So we want to look at it. We want to face it, but we don't say that that it has power over us, right? We deal with circumstance, but that doesn't mean that the circumstance has power over us. And that is what we deny. Not the circumstance itself, but its power over ourselves and our being. And so there's a few things that we know about this virus, and I wanted to share some of those things again, because it went into the decision to not meet in person. One of those things is that this virus is extremely contagious. It's something that is passed through. You can pass it through basically sneezing on somebody, from shaking hands, that someone may have that on their hands or on a surface where someone has coughed or sneezed or something, and the virus is there. So this is why news outlets and people are saying, don't touch your face, wash your hands frequently for at least 20 seconds. Doesn't seem to be agreement about the length of time that this virus can stay active. So what I've read is anywhere between 6 hours and 20 hours that it can stay on surfaces. So we want to just take those kind of precautions. But the best defense really, is going to be to maintain your good health and your immunity. So make sure that you're eating well, that you're staying hydrated, that you're getting exercise and plenty of sunlight, and that you're washing your hands, and doing the common sense things like avoiding big crowds, and maybe even voluntarily distancing yourselves from groups. I personally don't have a fear about getting sick. I don't have a concern about it, and I may get it. I mean, actually, I've had a cold now for probably 2 weeks. That little bit of sneezing and coughing and just stuffy. And so I'm trying to, I'm doing my best to not spread that. But my interest in this, in knowing that this virus is here, is that we take the lessons that we've learned from the trajectory in other countries. And we know that we can kind of flatten out that curve. People are going to get sick, yes. For most people, it's not going to affect them at all. But for others, people may be carriers of the virus and may pass it unknowingly to other people who may be immune compromised or maybe elderly. And we certainly don't want to do that. I don't want to be a carrier unknowingly and pass illness to somebody else. whose immune system might not be able to handle it. So again, it's not from a place of fear, but from a place of just being, thoughtful, considerate human beings that we want to look out for our fellow, our fellow beings. So let me see if there's any comments, questions, anything anyone wants to say about that. You can unmute yourselves if you have a question and you want to say anything. And it looks like we're all okay. I don't see any questions there. So I want to go to the next thing I wanted to kind of talk about, and that was the theme that I've been going with since the beginning of the year. I think I called it Rising Above the BS, aka belief systems that have kept us small and broke and sick, et cetera, et cetera. And there are some belief systems that are right now in our collective psyche. I've already talked about it a little bit, actually, is that fear and panic mode that people go into when there's something when there's uncertainty, when there are threats, whether real or imagined, we can very easily get into a panic and fear mode. And I think it's just, kind of part of the human condition, that as human beings, we are challenged. But we're not just human beings, right? We know that we are also spiritual beings going through a human experience. The other belief system that I think isn't helpful is the idea of ignoring it, that I'm not going to pay attention to it. I'm not going to give it any weight, because we know, again, metaphysically, that where we focus our attention and it grows in our awareness, and it becomes even, it gives more solidity. It gives more solidity to the thing. So, somewhere in between that is that happy medium of not ignoring what is so, but also not letting ourselves go into that panic and fear that really is not helpful. So I have a couple of suggestions for what we can do to rise above those belief systems, to rise above the BS. And one of those things that you might find interesting, I don't know, is a little exercise that I do personally, and that is to take the thing that I'm afraid of and actually dive right into it. Not put it in the back of my mind, not try to deny it, not try to, ignore it, but to actually look at the fear, look at that thing that I'm afraid of, and just dive right into it. What is the worst thing that could happen? Right. So what's the worst thing that could happen here if we end up being on quarantine, and we've got a month or 2 months where we're holed up in our homes? What's the worst thing that could happen? And just kind of playing that out to its very end. There are people that are getting very sick. There are people that are dying from this virus. And so I just, I took myself there. What happens if I get sick? What happens if my immunity doesn't fight it? What happens ultimately if I make my transition? I don't have any expectation that that's going to happen, but what if? Well, guess what? We're all checking out of here anyway at some point. Some of us, it's going to be corona, but for somebody else, it's going to be a car accident. It's going to be cancer. It's going to be God knows what. But the thing is that we are all here for just a certain amount of time, each one of us. And none of us know what that time is. So we're here to make the most of that. And to remember, one of these days, we're going to set this body to the side. And we're going to want to know that we did everything that we could do, everything that we came here to do, that we lived life fully, and that we loved, and that we had joy in our lives, and that we used our gifts and our talents, and that we made the most of this incredible opportunity that we have. So that's one practice that you can do, is just take that thing, whether it's coronavirus or any other thing, and just play it out. You know, what happens if the worst case scenario happens? And then what would happen then? And what would happen then? And just keep on taking it down and go all the way down into that rabbit hole. And I'll tell you what, when you get to the end of that fear, it just kind of evaporates, right? It just goes, it goes poof, because it really has no real substance. And then you can, then you can move on. Then you can go on with the business of living. The next thing that you can do to rise above is to prepare yourself, right? Do everything you can do to prepare, to feel like you've done your part, and then you can surrender and rest into the faith of knowing that Spirit has got your back, right? So I went out and I got some non-perishable food items in case we are in our homes for a little bit. Make sure you've got your medicines that you need. Make sure you have whatever creature comforts you need in case you've got to be socially distanced for a while. Do your part, and then you can relax. Then you can feel like you've done your thing, and now Spirit, God steps in and does its thing. And then the last thing that you can do, and it's not the last thing, it really is the first thing that we need to do, is to once you release the belief system, when you release things, you create a vacuum. And so what do we want to do in that vacuum? But be conscious in what we put in its place. And the way that we are conscious in putting things in their place is through prayer. Here in Centers for Spiritual Living, we call it spiritual mind treatment. And it's a very specific way of praying. It's not coming from a place of fear. It's not coming from what I don't want to see. It's coming from a place of affirmation, a place of faith, a place of knowing, and a place of speaking the truth of what it is that we want to consciously create. And this is what we do with prayer. So this is what I encourage us all to do, and we're gonna do a prayer as well. In fact, I'm going to share a prayer right now, a really beautiful prayer, and I apologize. I meant to get the name of the young lady who wrote it, but it came from Seattle, and Dr. Edward Villon shared it the other day, and I thought you all would appreciate hearing this. The young woman called it Prayer for a Pandemic, and it says, "May we who are merely inconvenienced remember those whose lives are at stake. May we who have no risk factors remember those most vulnerable. May we who have the luxury of working from home remember those who must choose between preserving their health or making their rent. May we who have the flexibility to care for our children when their schools close remember those who don't have that option. May we who have had to cancel our trips remember those who have no safe place to go. May we who are losing our margin money in the tumult of the economic market remember those who have no margin at all. May we who settle in for quarantine at home remember those who have no home. As fear grips our country, let us choose love. During this time when we cannot physically wrap our arms around one another, let us yet find ways to be the loving embrace of God to our neighbors. Amen. Amen. I think it was really just beautifully said. And so I'm gonna, I wanted to speak for about a half hour or do our intro for a half hour and then open it up to folks and see what questions you might have or whatever else you might want to offer. But I'd like for you to consider this question. In the event that we have to physically distance ourselves for the next month or, 6 weeks, however long that is, what gifts might there be for you in your life that come from that? And I want you to think about that Myself personally, I've been asked to do this for a while, to do some kind of online streaming, or, you know, we've talked about the possibility of doing service online, and it's been on my back burner for a long time. I've been talking about doing it. I've been wanting to do it. And lo and behold, here it is. The opportunity has now presented itself, and I'm going to get to do that. I've been wanting to spend some time doing some writing. And in fact, had been saying for a little bit, I wish I just had 2 months, just 2 months. I could work on this project, I could knock it out, it would be done. And maybe even have another source of income. So for me, those are two great takeaways and opportunities that are coming from this circumstance that we're dealing with. So I just want to open it up. You guys can unmute yourselves, or if you're going to speak and say something, go ahead and unmute yourself.
For me,
Go ahead.
for me, I think it's an opportunity really to really connect with your family, the people who lives with you, and then just allow your body to get rest. You know, we're so busy, always running, 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 doing, that we just get a chance to just sit and be for a little bit, you know, maybe disconnect from the chaos by, you know, not tuning into the news channel every 5 seconds. Not to say that you shouldn't tune in from time to time, but, you know, just the best thing I have seen everywhere has said, go in the sunshine, and we are in the sunshine state. We can go in our backyard, bring our cup of coffee out there, bring our dog, and just sit in nature and just soak in the sun. And that in itself is the healing that is needed for our bodies at this time. And it forces us to do it. So that for me is the biggest takeaway, is that I get a chance to go outside and be in the sunshine and, you know, hang out with my family.
Yeah, that's one of the wonderful things I've heard. I hope that this is so. I'm going to speak this affirmation that this coronavirus does not do well in heat, and we know what's coming up, right? We all living in the Florida heat. That may be a great help to us, and of course, you know, just getting out there in this wonderful sunshine. I see Ron says here, is this making me a televangelist? Haha.
I read in I guess it was online this week, that a woman 40 years ago wrote a book that spoke about this pandemic that was going to come in 2020. And it was going to disappear as fast as it came. And it was going to be worldwide. But it would not be gone for good. It would come back. And coronavirus has been around for a long time, many different strains of it. And I believe that a lot more people have it or are carriers than we even imagine, because people have been sick for several months with things that don't go away for a month or two. But for me, it's giving me a lot more time to be at home, which I've wanted to do, and not be in such a rat race all the time. It's given me more time to meditate, to pray, and to study, and to just go outside and walk my dogs with the neighbors, but staying a safe distance. So I think everybody can find some positive out of what we're doing.
Thanks, Mary Lou.
Yeah, that's where I was going with it when Yadana was mentioning the things that Mary Lou touched on. Also, it's a great opportunity to deepen our spiritual practices. You know, if we had been looking for time to journal, just couldn't fit it in. Journal, take your thoughts and put them on paper. Go into meditation more. You know, all of the practices that you maybe already are doing a little, deepen them, do them more often. Commune, you know, everything that, whatever draws you closer to that spark, that source, that divine source. It's a great opportunity to, like I said, deepen those practices.
Someone on the listserv suggested making a spiritual practice out of hand washing, which I thought was great. You know, if you're going to be doing it that much more, why not You know, get in there, take your 20 seconds and just really feel the water on your hands, give thanks for the, you know, for the moment, and just use it as mindfulness and a way to connect. We can do this throughout the day, throughout the day.
I was telling Norma earlier that I have a dilemma in that I work with the public every day, and used to shake hands with people after a sale. But my dilemma is that I am high risk because of my age and also because of some medical stuff. And do I stay home and put the burden on other people, or do I go in and just do the best I can to stay safe? And the owner has already told me, if you don't feel safe and you want to stay home, stay home. But there are 3 other people that are high risk at work too. So I need to pray about that more and just wait for some answers.
Yeah. And you know, here's the thing that I know, that each one of us is part of that divine presence, and each one of us has the gift of intuition and the gift of knowing. And I don't think anyone else can answer these questions for us.
Right.
No one else can answer what you need to do, Mary Lou, but you know that you have the wisdom within you to know. And I affirm for you, and I affirm for each one, that we each have that intuition, we have that guidance, and that we have the clarity and the strength to follow whatever that is for each one individually. You know, I've also postponed my ordination ceremony, and that was a little bit heartbreaking, but it feels like the right thing to do. It feels like the right thing to do. And again, it's postponing it. It's not canceling it. It's, we're going to do it when the time is perfect and right, and people feel comfortable traveling to be here. So again, any kind of distancing that we're doing is really out of love and appreciation, and just being good stewards, just being good people, and looking out for one another. Anyone else have see any silver lining in this for your life personally?
You know, it just reiterates to me just how strong the medical staff is. You know, the commitment that we have. I know that sometimes we can get a little jaded where we're like, oh man, we're exhausted and we're tired, and oh, it's very scary that we're bringing home whatever we're bringing home to our families. But just the fact that we still put that scrub set on and hit that hospital, and still we act as if business as usual. And I just see my fellow coworkers going through their own mindset, but still showing up and still caring for these people who there is no, you can't not go. We don't have that choice because people are sick and dying of way worse things, and they're depending on seeing our faces show up. And it just really makes me very proud to be a part of that team, and very proud to be a part of these amazing people. But in the same token, I am aware that we're still human and we're still in our own fears. And so it's nice that I can take this teaching and say, hey, you know, even though we're here, let us look at it this way. I can take this teaching and teach our fellow employees how to come at it from a spiritual standpoint instead of a fear standpoint. So I'm able to do that because of this teaching, and I'm so glad.
I so appreciate you, Donna, and all the first responders and people that are going out there. You know, as they said, you know, married to a first responder, and when everybody else is holed up at home, you know, it's a hurricane or some other kind of disaster. Those are the folks that are going out into the heart of the danger. And so I appreciate people who are doing that, and that you can come to it from a place of awareness and consciousness, and holding people in that loving space. Thinking about you, Donna, actually, and your mom was one of the things that had me say, I think we need to do this at a distance. Just in thinking about the potential overload on our medical system, right? We still have all the same people having all accidents, heart attacks, all the same stuff that still bring them to the hospital. Now we may have additional people coming in with virus and pneumonia and those kinds of things that could overload the system. And that's part of why I felt it was important for us to do this voluntarily, not because we have to, not as a reaction to anything, but being proactive. So I'm going to see, we have some questions here. I'm looking at the Facebook here. Yeah. Concern about people who are having to work from home that may not, finances could be a real fear for people if, you're not going to be working for a little bit. I'm just knowing that there's, that this is happening at this time in our collective awareness for reasons, probably many reasons. And I'm just affirming that those reasons and the good is going to be clearer and clearer as we move through this together. Let's see who else we have here. I'm looking now at the Facebook feed. Thank you. Let's see, Shanda Krieger, we're not a body with a soul, we're a soul with a body. Spirit will guide us down the right path. Absolutely. And welcome. Shanda, I don't know if we have met before. I'm trying to see as your little postage stamp on my screen. All right.
Yeah, I'm not all done up either.
Welcome.
Then he comes every Sunday and sits over on the left of the stage.
Gotcha. All right. Does anyone else want to say anything or add anything?
Well, you made a good point about like everyday situations that are going on. I mean, like people having heart attacks and everything else. And I mean, it might seem like a sacrifice to us that we can't all get together, but actually yesterday was a good example of something that I chose to give up. I was supposed to go to a lunch with a group of family, and one of my uncles, he has severe COPD. Well, right now I may be dealing with allergies. There's a possible chance it might be a cold or some sort of bug. I don't know. I chose not to go because I wanted to protect my uncle. And it wasn't a sacrifice on my part. I chose to give it up out of love for him.
Mm-hmm.
And a way to keep him safe.
Yeah. Yeah. And that for me has a very different energy than, I'm afraid to be out there. I'm afraid to be sick or somebody's going to sneeze on me or something like that. Versus just doing it out of caring for other people. I think this is an opportunity. I posted something, I'm not sure if I put it on the Center's Facebook page, but it was an article about having this be our best moment, right? It's almost like an extended hurricane day. And, I always think it's a shame that it takes a storm for people to get to know their neighbors and for people to check in on one another. But, it's those things that make us slow down and look at what's really important. And so I kind of am looking at this as a similar kind of thing. We have the opportunity to reach out to some other folks and to just keep that heart line, keep that connection with people, because we know that as human beings, we all have a very deep need to be connected. And
yesterday in my neighborhood, we were supposed to go to the MS walk at the polo fields in the villages, which they canceled. And my neighbor has MS, and she recently fell and broke her legs. So she's housebound for 6 weeks. And she had bought everyone t-shirts that said Team Maria. And so we decided, since they weren't going to have the walk, to do our own walk in the neighborhood. And about, I don't know, 10, 12 of us put our t-shirts on, went down and got her and put her in a wheelchair. And we walked the neighborhood, just like we would have done. And she's been really down. She lost her husband this year. And so it really lifted her up. And we all felt good about it. And it was safe distancing, but we could be outside and do something like that for her.
That's so beautiful. I'm gonna, that gives me an idea, inviting you all to put some of these things online, right? What you're doing, what little things you're doing to reach out to your neighbors. And that's just such a beautiful story, Mary Lou.
I'll post a picture of us.
Yeah, do that. I'm gonna invite everybody to just, put it online. Let folks see the ways that you're reaching out and uplifting other people, because we can be the light. We are that, whether we're, in our homes or we're doing it all together here at the center or in our respective workplaces. Each one of us is the light. We can be that for other people. I see Tad saying it's a hurricane party with great weather and electricity. Yes. Electricity, water. Yeah, we've got it all. Anything else? Well, I'm thinking about this format and how we go forward. It's actually pretty simple to do this, to gather in this way. Maybe we gather more often. I'm thinking maybe a midweek conversation or a midweek opportunity for coming together in spiritual practice, maybe doing some meditation, prayer. We can come together in our circles. Our tech team and our music team may not be meeting in person, or maybe you will choose to meet in person. There's a small enough groups, everybody can wash their hands and keep their distance and hang out together. So I'm just going to invite that and open it up to all the possibilities and see what, how this community wants to stay connected. And I am open and willing to, to add more gatherings, this way. We can do, as I said, maybe a Wednesday night or a Friday or another Sunday evening, or whatever it is that is going to help people feel like they're still connected and plugged in.